You're listening to Talk to Brazil with Tom Reaoch. Welcome to Talk to Brazil, the world's first English-language internet radio program about business in Brazil, now in a podcast format. I'm Tom Reaoch and your host for the show. I'm talking from the city of Campinas in the state of São Paulo, Brazil, so when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Today's guest is Elinor Stutz. She is CEO of Smooth Sail. She's an international best-selling author, a motivational speaker, a top 1% influencer, and also a creative sales blogger. She's an American who grew up on the West Coast of the United States, and she's here this morning talking with us from the Northern Virginia area, which is better known as the DC metro area. Elinor and I initially connected on LinkedIn several years ago, and she has also been a guest on our Talk to Brazil show in the past. So with that, hello, Elinor, and welcome back to Talk to Brazil.
Hello, Tom. Thank you so much for having me as your guest today.
No, it's always fun to talk to you. I've been following you and keep following you, so you're an exciting person. You definitely are an influencer. But what I'd like to have you share with us and our audience today, you are the sales professional, right? You teach and you talk about sales. You're the smooth sales lady. But talking to our audience today, for salespersons and companies, how do you develop and maintain what I call virtual trust in a world market where personal contact is a premium and hard to get?
That's an excellent question. And I always say that old-fashioned etiquette coupled with new age technology is the savviest strategy of all. So the old-fashioned idea of personalizing communication, being consistent, and your communication style is what develops credibility and then soon followed by trust. And then there are strategies for applying that to the latest technologies online. So it's a combination of the old and the new that does the trick.
And both of those, the old is the experience that we have, that you have, but what I see out in the market, we were talking offline now, the robocalls here in Brazil, they're pretty popular. I said when I picked up my landline here, more often than not, it's a robocall, and I'm not sure if I'm speaking with a person or not. So that's technology, but on my side, that's not a technology that attracts me.
No, it certainly would not be. And the other thing that's become very popular, and I hope it's going to be outdated soon, are these endless emails that say, hey there, call me if you're interested. And, of course, I'm not interested, so I delete the message. And then I get a follow-up email. You didn't call me. What's going on? Well, that's not a good start in communication.
No, but where do we go with this? Because everybody comes out with a new idea of how to do that. And so developing trust in real time, face-to-face, sometimes is a challenge for a person in sales. Even if they're behind the counter of their mom and pop store, how do they show trust? How do they generate that with their customer?
Believe it or not, I advise that people, when they're about to enter the threshold of a company or have people come into their establishment, forgo all sales goals. The only goal is understanding why you're in front of your prospective client. What are their goals? How do they envision solving their problem? What is their perspective of the world? And then you can work backwards, and instead of telling them, memorize script or what you know to be true, just ask them questions. How do you view? Why do you think this? And if somebody says something that you view as outrageous, just say, oh, what's been your experience? How did you come to that conclusion? So you can really get into their mindset and have a deeper conversation. And in this way, I refer to it as a relaxed negotiation. It works like a charm because people see you're interested in them.
Relaxed negotiation. I'm writing this down if you don't remember. Negotiation. It's hard to be relaxed in this world that's 24/7 and everything about 40,000 miles an hour. But I'll write that down and see how can I be relaxed in a negotiation. When we all have a bottom line, everybody's forcing us to results, and everybody has an end of the month filing.
That's true. That's true. But if you have these relaxed conversations or negotiations, you never have to worry about a full pipeline because it builds. And what happens is you build new prospective clients along with a loyal clientele. Because you're so unique, you build a personal brand, and they just want to deal with you. That's what happened to me in the corporate sales world, and it happens over and over again that people call me for new opportunities and repeat opportunities because of that. So on the side, I have to tell you I'm very active on Twitter. And aside from just being sales and business development oriented, I look at some of the spiritual quotes and suggestions from all types of doctors. And they all say, take time out, take a hike, go run, go to the gym. But the most important piece is to be in the moment and enjoy every minute. And so if you apply that concept to conversations with your prospective clientele and current clientele, if you're in the moment, sharing stories, telling jokes, having fun, that's where the credibility and trust grows. And you've got your loyal clientele because nobody else does it.
Well, I think I agree with you, and I think that's the same message as if somebody's walking into a store, a shopping center, or falling into your blog, your site, or finding you on LinkedIn. I think what you have done, and I agree, that you have developed your personal brand. You are a brand. So people go in and look for sales, they find you.
Well, that's what happens over time. I was given all these instructions of you should in the early stage of smooth sale, and none of it fit my personality or how I do things. I always attribute it to being left-handed. So
really?
I do things my
We have to see.
I do things my way.
You have to say that because since this is on audio, nobody knows if you're right-handed or left-handed. But that's good to know.
Absolutely. So I am more creative, and I have my own ideas of how things should be done. And again, it goes back to old-fashioned nicety. Do unto others as you would want them to do unto you.
Wow.
So when I'm online, I give out helpful advice. I'm not simply saying, if you want to be better at sales, click my link and buy here, subscribe. I don't do that. I send out my best sales tips.
Wow. Well, I hear you, and I also hear right now my mother. She's passed away, but that exactly was no, seriously. When I was a kid, that was one of her things. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and that's the same for people, for companies, for everything. But I don't think what you're saying, what my mother said, many people believe.
Apparently they don't. So I put a qualification on it. If they don't do unto you as you would hope and expect, move on to the next person who might.
Well, she also said, turn the page, right? Turn the page.
Exactly. So what I say in sales, you qualify and match. And I can share with you a funny episode where I was excited to call a female executive long ago, which was a rarity. But it turned out she was extraordinarily rude to me, and it was a shock. So I wrote her a note, and I said, you know what? I can't help you, but I know someone that would be the perfect fit. And I was expecting to get the last laugh. It was the most obnoxious salesman, that I ever met. And I put the two in touch. And you know what? A month later, they were both on the phone calling me to thank me. I think they were dating.
Well, that's matching, huh?
Qualify and match. So you do the same online, except, I didn't know a thing about marketing, and I was in a group in the early stages of social media on how to get my messaging across. The woman was a genius. But 75% of the time, you put out very helpful advice, and 25% of the time, provide an offer of some sort.
Well,
And it works
that
like a
reminds
charm
me.
that way.
See, what you're doing is what happens when I go into a store once in a while. Less now than in the past, and people would give you a free sample, and you'd taste it.
Yeah.
And and if you liked it, you'd say so, and if you didn't like it, you'd also say, well, it's too salty, it's too sweet, it's too whatever. Actually, what you do, you let them taste test.
Exactly. And we've actually purchased a couple things like that at a local grocery store. It works.
No, it does work, and I think that's the path. And back to creating virtual trust. It's literally giving something away for free, and not even saying you're giving it. It's just there. If they want to take it, they take it. If they don't, and you're full of good examples. But not everybody looks and sees them that way, or takes them as being that.
And the other piece of insight that I'd like to share is that when somebody sends you a message on LinkedIn, Twitter, or whatever site you happen to be on, answer it as quickly as you possibly can. And if you don't understand the question, ask for help qualifying the meaning that they're trying to get. And if you don't have interest, be honest. Just say, it sounds wonderful. I wish you much success, but it's not the right time for us now, or something to that effect.
Or send them on to somebody who might. That's true. Say, I can suggest somebody else who has a better idea or the same idea, whatever.
Exactly. Referrals are wonderful, and the more referrals you provide, the more will come your way. It really is the law of reciprocity, or of attraction, however you want to say it.
Well, I call that the power of attraction.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly what that is. If we put information out, if we're doing, as you're saying, having the samples out there, and in a virtual world, there have to be tidbits out there that somebody can latch on to and follow. And that's the power of attraction. I learned several years ago, and you mentioned personal branding, and I know we're connected together with Dan Schaubel. Dan is the guru on personal branding. And one of the things that I've tried to follow is today it's all outbound marketing has changed to inbound. And that's long ago. You have to have something out there to attract people. And if you have the power of attraction, they come to you.
Yes, they do. In the old-fashioned sales world where you met in the corporate facility, people would call me a breath of fresh air. And I came to realize, because I didn't know much about the sales process in the early days, but I knew how to have a great conversation. And they didn't care. I didn't know anything about what I was selling. By the fourth month, I was the top rep. And I kept going back. And over time, I learned about sales. But underneath all of the strategy and techniques you can learn in the books you read, it comes down to kindness, respect, and doing your best on behalf of the client, leaving the goal of a sale outside the threshold or not in the conversation. It will come. Like they say, build it and it will come. They will come. It's the same with sales. You build the credibility and trust, and the sales will come forth.
And I think we could say that to salespersons. They need to take that to the personal level and not necessarily just focus on the product or the service, whatever they're offering, because it is the person that's saying whatever's being said that develops the trust.
Absolutely. It's building the relationship. That counts more than anything.
Because we spoke before a little bit about robots, and I just received a message from a friend of mine. He's in Denmark right now, and he was showing that there are robots that are roaming around the establishment where he is, and they're personifying people who are not there presently. which is a way of putting the technology together so they can see a video or look on a monitor and talk to a person who might be in Japan or might be in Brazil or might be somewhere else. But what I hear is, how do we make a robot kind, and how do we make a robot respectful, and how do we use the technology then to develop this trust that you mentioned?
Well, that's an excellent question. I've been reading up quite a bit about it. Right now, what I've read is that robotic technology is designed to take away the mundane that most people don't care about. However, it's going to take quite some time to make them sound like humans. And they're suggesting that it's a perfect opportunity for salespeople to stand above the crowded playing field among robotics and peers if they would just put a personal touch in their conversation, whether it be online, on the phone, or in person.
Right.
Being personally professional is the key to successful selling.
Well, if I take everything that you said and looking forward to 2025, we can say that robots can be fun, but we need to have a robot that's left-handed. Is that it?
That's it. Absolutely.
So to our listeners out there, develop your left-handed robots, have them listen, right? Have them joke, have fun, enjoy. Is that it? Offer relaxed negotiation. Is that it? These are the key words that I've written down. A breath of trust.
Yeah.
Wow. A lot of stuff here packed in a little package today.
And I'll just tell you a quick story of proof that it works. A manager went out on a call with me, and on the way back he said, "I don't like the way you sell. This is testimony to my being left-handed. I want you to start doing everything like everybody else." When we got in the office, he said, "Did you get my message? Otherwise, you're not going to have a job." I said, "I'll be very happy to change if you'll answer one question." I always answer questions with questions. So he said, "Sure, what is it?" I said, "If I'm doing everything wrong, can you please explain to me why I'm always at the top of the sales scoreboard?" Well, he turned beet red and headed to his office and didn't come out till 5 o'clock and then ran to his car. End of conversation.
He probably tried to open his car door with his left hand, right?
Maybe. I probably was not a fun employee.
No, but I think the world needs the not fun employees. I think game changers and world changers, and you're one of them, is that. If we're all the same and we're all different, then just make everybody a robot. But the change happens, really, when people like you are around. I'm saying positive change.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Elinor, I want to thank you. We're coming to the end of our time, but certainly and definitely we're going to be back again in the future to talk more. I want to talk in our next time together more about blogging, okay? Because that too is something that I know that you're a professional and you're out there using that, and I'd like to help our audience understand through you the future of blogging, the future of text, okay, in a world that's, from what I see now, is going more to voice contact. So how can we put all that together? So I'll have you back in the future and we'll talk about that. How about that?
That sounds excellent. Thank you so much, Tom. It's always a pleasure being your guest.
Nah, and always a pleasure following you. You'll be on Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere. You're there, and you're always exciting. I just want to make a quick mention this weekend, and this is the power of trust and the power of attraction. On LinkedIn, I scrolled down through and I saw a post by an Australian, and I'll be honest with you, I only read it because you had liked it. From what was there, I said, well, if Elinor liked it, I got to read it because it's good. And I did, and it was good. And it woke me up to a number of things and validated other things. So I think that's also the power of it. Just showing up as a like on somebody else's post is important. So congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you. That's good to know. And I do similar. When I see someone I respect advocating an article or something, I will take time to read it.
Yeah, because there's so much out there, and we have to pick and choose. We have to have criteria of that. So, and you are part of the criteria that I use to read things that flow past on LinkedIn.
Well, thank you. And likewise, I like following you and seeing what you're up to and the people you connect with. And that's how you find better business leads, too. It's kind of passive in finding it, or a more enjoyable way,
Right.
but it works because in the process you're qualifying and matching, as I mentioned earlier.
No, that's true. And that's the fun part of doing business in this virtual world.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Elinor, we're going to have you back, and thanks for sharing your morning with us, all right? And I'd also like to invite our listeners, they can find more about Elinor Stutz, and that's ELINORSTUTZ, and you'll find her on Smooth Sail Net, and that's SMOOTHSALE.net, correct?
That's correct, and I appreciate it, and I hope if anyone listening has a question, they will email me, Elinor@smoothsail.net, and I'm happy to answer your questions because most likely other people have similar ones. And enjoy the blog if you do visit the site. Thank you.
Thank you again. And I'd also like to invite our guests and listeners to visit our website, which is talktobrazil.com, and follow the links to more about Elinor Stutz and her LinkedIn profile. And also, you'll be able to listen again to this podcast. You can also find our shows on Spotify and Stitcher. You can always send your suggestions or comments and find me at tom@talktobrazil.com. On LinkedIn, join the Talk to Brazil group and follow our discussions. So remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Tom Reaoch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.